I'm not gonna make 65. Let's just face facts, guy.
Roddy Piper was a man who seemed larger than life, a wrestling icon whose charisma, intensity, and unpredictability made him one of the most unforgettable figures in sports entertainment. From the roar of the crowd to the bright lights of Hollywood, Piper commanded attention wherever he went. But behind the over-the-top persona and the fame that came with it, a much darker and deeply personal story was unfolding, a story marked by pain, struggle, and tragedy. For decades, Piper captivated fans with his explosive energy, sharp wit, and fearless persona. He was more than a wrestler. He was a performer, an entertainer, and a cultural phenomenon. Yet few saw the man behind the character Roddy Piper. Behind the microphone, the flamboyant interviews and the legendary matches, he battled demons that were invisible to the millions who cheered his name. His life was a study in contrasts, a man who could command arenas of screaming fans, yet struggle with personal loss and inner turmoil. The tragedies he endured, both on and off the stage, were often overshadowed by his larger-than-life persona, leaving many to only know the icon, not the human being behind the mask. Today, we peel back the layers of Roddy Piper's life, exploring the hardships, health battles, and emotional struggles that culminated in a fate as tragic as it was unexpected. This is the story of a man whose life inspired millions, but who faced challenges few could ever imagine. A story that goes beyond the wrestling ring, beyond the fame and straight into the heart of a life marked by resilience, pain, and ultimate loss. Roddy Piper, born Roderick George Toombs in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in 1954, grew up far from the bright lights and roaring crowds that would later define his life. From an early age, Piper displayed a fearless, headstrong personality, traits that would both propel and challenge him throughout his career. His youth in Canada was a mix of ordinary childhood experiences and glimpses of the rebellious streak that would later become his trademark. These early years shaped the man who would eventually become Roddy Piper, one of wrestling's most enduring icons. Piper's entry into professional wrestling was not a straight path. He began training in Canada but soon realized that his ambitions demanded a broader stage. Wrestling in small regional promotions allowed him to hone his skills, develop a persona, and experiment with character work that would later define him. Even in these early circuits, his energy, charisma, and willingness to push boundaries set him apart from his peers. Piper was not just wrestling to win matches. He was crafting a persona that audiences would remember for a lifetime. The transformation into Roddy Piper came through a combination of natural charisma, improvisational genius, and strategic image building. Piper embraced the Scottish heritage of his persona, complete with kilted attire, bagpipes, and a mischievous, rebellious attitude. This larger-than-life identity resonated with fans, giving them someone they could love, hate, cheer, and fear, often all at the same time. The Roddy character was not just a gimmick. It was a reflection of Piper's real-life personality, unpredictable, daring, and unwilling to conform to expectations. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, Piper's star was rising rapidly. His work in regional promotions caught the attention of the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, where he would cement his status as a household name. Piper's unmatched ability to cut promos, interviews in which he spoke directly to the audience, set him apart from every other wrestler of his time. He could provoke, entertain, and manipulate the crowd, drawing them into a story that felt raw, personal, and immediate. It was this skill that made Piper an icon not only inside the ring, but also as a television personality, bridging the worlds of sport and entertainment in a way few could achieve. Yet, even as his fame grew, the pressures of professional wrestling were immense. The grueling travel schedules, intense physical demands, and backstage politics created a high-stakes environment that tested Piper's endurance, both mentally and physically. He pushed himself to the limits to maintain his persona and to satisfy the ever-growing expectations of fans, promoters, and peers. Behind the high-energy interviews and sold-out arenas, there were early signs of the personal struggles that would later define the tragic side of his story. Despite these challenges, Roddy Piper's rise was meteoric. He became a key figure in some of wrestling's most iconic events, including legendary feuds, unforgettable matches, and appearances that blurred the line between reality and performance. By the early 1980s, Piper was not just a wrestler, he was an entertainer, a provocateur, and a cultural figure whose influence extended far beyond the squared circle. Yet, even at the height of his fame, the man behind the kilt, the bagpipes, and the brash personality was navigating personal battles that remained hidden from the adoring public. This chapter of his life highlights the foundations of both his brilliance and his eventual tragedy. A combination of raw talent, relentless ambition, and the pressures of living a life that demanded more than most could imagine. Roddy Piper's rise was nothing short of extraordinary, yet it set the stage for the profound personal struggles that would later define his fate. Behind the fame, the bagpipes, and the fiery promos, Roddy Piper's life was a complex mix of triumph and turmoil. While the public saw the confident, brash, rowdy character dominating wrestling rings and television screens, few were aware of the personal struggles that shadowed him throughout his career. These struggles were both internal and external, ranging from professional pressures to deeply personal challenges that would leave lasting scars. One of the most significant aspects of Piper's personal struggle was the relentless pressure of the wrestling world itself. The 24/7 schedule of touring, performing, and maintaining his persona took a severe toll on his physical and mental health. Wrestlers of his era often faced grueling travel, minimal recovery time, and constant scrutiny from promoters and fans. Piper pushed himself to extremes to maintain his reputation, but the physical wear and tear, combined with the emotional stress of living in character almost constantly, began to accumulate. He often admitted that stepping out of character was not easy, and the line between Roddy Piper, the man, and Rowdy Piper, the persona, blurred over time. Substance abuse became another significant challenge. Like many performers in the wrestling industry, Piper struggled with alcohol and painkillers, often turning to them to manage stress, physical pain, and the emotional pressures of fame. These struggles were compounded by a lack of support systems that could address both mental and physical well-being in a demanding industry. The combination of fame, expectation, and isolation contributed to patterns that would affect his relationships, his career, and ultimately, his health. Family life and personal relationships were also affected by the demands of his career. Long periods on the road, coupled with the intensity of the wrestling persona, created distance from loved ones. Piper's relationships were often strained, leaving him to navigate loneliness even in the midst of adulation. While fans celebrated the high-energy performer they adored, Piper's personal life was filled with challenges that the public rarely saw. Despite these difficulties, Piper's dedication to his craft never wavered. His personal struggles, while painful, also fueled his creativity, intensity, and authenticity in the ring. He poured his experiences, frustrations, and emotions into his performances, making his characters more relatable, compelling, and memorable. The same struggles that caused personal pain contributed to his legendary status in wrestling, a paradox that defined much of his life. This chapter of Piper's story reveals the man behind the legend. Someone who experienced pain, battled inner demons, and persevered despite the weight of personal and professional pressures. It's a side of Roddy Piper that the public rarely witnessed, the private struggles that accompanied a career built on boldness, charisma, and fearlessness. These struggles laid the groundwork for both his ultimate triumphs and the tragic aspects of his later life, showing that the line between greatness and tragedy can be thinner than anyone imagines. Roddy Piper's career reached legendary heights, earning him a place among the most iconic figures in professional wrestling history. From the WWF's first WrestleMania to unforgettable feuds with Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and other wrestling greats, Piper's energy, charisma, and fearless approach made him a standout performer. But behind each match, each promo, and each victory, there was a cost, a personal toll that few outside the wrestling world fully understood. One of Piper's most famous moments came at the first-ever WrestleMania in 1985, where his feud with Hulk Hogan and Mr. T captured national attention. The match was a spectacle, blending athleticism with storytelling and drama, and it cemented Piper's status as a household name. He was praised for his improvisational skill, quick wit, and ability to captivate the crowd. But the preparation for such high-profile events was exhausting. Long hours of rehearsal, grueling travel schedules, and the pressure to deliver flawless performances created intense stress and physical strain. For Piper, maintaining his rowdy persona at all times meant that he rarely had a moment to step out of the spotlight and address his own needs. Another defining moment was his appearance in WrestleMania 3, where he was involved in some of the most talked-about backstage segments and promotional skits in wrestling history. Piper's skill at blurring the line between reality and performance made him a master of storytelling. Fans loved him for it, but the constant demand to perform and maintain his persona often left Piper emotionally drained. Living a life where one's public identity is more celebrated than one's private self can take a heavy toll, and for Piper, the pressures accumulated over decades. In addition to the physical and emotional strain, Piper also dealt with injuries that are part and parcel of professional wrestling. He endured concussions, broken bones, and chronic pain, often performing through injuries to ensure the show went on. The combination of intense physical demands and emotional exhaustion took a cumulative effect on his health, creating a long-term impact that would follow him into his later years. Piper also expanded his career beyond the wrestling ring. His role in the cult classic film They Live showcased his versatility and charisma, introducing him to a broader audience outside wrestling. Yet even Hollywood's success did not shield him from personal struggles. The pressures of fame, public expectations, and the constant scrutiny of fans and media continued to weigh heavily. Each achievement was accompanied by moments of isolation and the hidden battles that he rarely shared publicly. Through it all, Piper remained dedicated to his craft and loyal to his fans. His ability to channel personal pain into performance made him unforgettable, but it also underscored the cost of living a life so fully in the public eye. The juxtaposition of his professional triumphs with personal hardships highlights the duality that defined Roddy Piper's life. A man capable of thrilling audiences worldwide, yet struggling privately with the pressures, health issues, and emotional burdens that came with his extraordinary career. As Roddy Piper entered his later years, the physical and emotional toll of decades in professional wrestling became increasingly apparent. The man who had once dominated arenas with boundless energy now faced the consequences of a lifetime spent in a high-risk profession, combined with personal struggles that had persisted behind the scenes. His final years were marked by a battle against declining health, the lingering effects of injuries, and the weight of personal hardships that had long accompanied his fame. Piper's body bore the scars of his career. Years of high-impact matches, falls, and physical confrontations left him with chronic pain, mobility challenges, and ongoing health concerns. Like many wrestlers of his generation, he endured injuries that were often untreated or managed with painkillers, which over time contributed to long-term physical complications. Yet, despite these challenges, Piper continued to appear at conventions, fan events, and media appearances, maintaining a public persona that remained energetic and approachable. The contrast between his public presence and private reality was stark, illustrating the resilience required to maintain a career while battling physical limitations. In addition to the physical toll, Piper's later years were complicated by emotional and psychological struggles. Decades of fame, coupled with periods of isolation, substance use, and the constant demands of public life, had left him vulnerable to stress and health decline. Friends and colleagues often noted that the man they saw in interviews, brash, humorous, and confident, carried a quieter, more introspective side that few witnessed. These personal battles were compounded by the realities of aging and the ongoing management of injuries sustained throughout his career. Tragically, Roddy Piper's life was cut short in July 2015, when he suffered a sudden heart attack at the age of 61. The news shocked fans and the wrestling world alike, leaving an outpouring of grief from those who admired his work, both in the ring and on screen. While his passing was sudden, it reflected the cumulative effect of a lifetime of physical strain and personal challenges. Piper's death served as a stark reminder of the hidden cost of careers built on extreme physicality and public performance, as well as the personal sacrifices made by those who dedicate their lives to entertaining others. Even in his final years, Piper remained committed to connecting with fans, mentoring younger wrestlers, and celebrating the legacy of professional wrestling. He left behind not only a storied career filled with legendary moments, but also a cautionary tale about the cost of fame and the fragility of life. His passing highlighted the need for awareness about the long-term health consequences faced by professional athletes, particularly those in high-impact, physically demanding professions like wrestling. Roddy Piper's final years reflect both his enduring spirit and the tragedy of a life marked by extraordinary achievement alongside hidden struggles. While his physical health declined, his legacy continued to grow, ensuring that the man behind the persona, the trailblazer, the entertainer, the complex human being, would never be forgotten. The combination of brilliance and hardship, triumph and tragedy, defines Piper's life story as one that inspires, warns, and leaves a lasting imprint on the world of wrestling and beyond. Roddy Piper's life was one of contrasts, larger-than-life success paired with private struggles, physical triumphs shadowed by personal hardships. At the heart of it all was a man whose creativity, charisma, and fearlessness left an indelible mark on professional wrestling and popular culture. His legacy is not defined solely by his matches or Hollywood appearances, but by the impact he had on fans, colleagues, and the industry itself. Piper's influence extends far beyond the wrestling ring. He revolutionized the way wrestlers connect with audiences, turning promos into storytelling art and transforming the persona of a wrestler into a fully realized character. His willingness to push boundaries, challenge norms, and take risks inspired a generation of wrestlers who followed in his footsteps. Piper's creativity, coupled with his raw authenticity, made him a role model for performers seeking to balance entertainment with personal expression. Yet his life also offers sobering lessons. The physical and emotional toll of a demanding career, the struggles with substance use, and the personal sacrifices required to maintain his public persona illustrate the hidden costs of fame. Piper's story reminds us that the heroes we celebrate are human, vulnerable, complex, and often carrying burdens unseen by the world. His passing at the age of 61 is a poignant testament to the consequences of a life lived at full intensity, both inside and outside the ring. Despite the tragedy of his early death, Roddy Piper's spirit endures. Fans continue to celebrate his iconic moments, from legendary feuds to unforgettable promos, while his influence remains evident in modern wrestling. Beyond entertainment, his story teaches resilience, creativity, and the importance of authenticity even when life is difficult. Ultimately, Roddy Piper's life is a study in contrasts, brilliance shadowed by struggle, humor intertwined with pain, and public triumphs alongside private battles. His story is a reminder that greatness often comes at a cost, but that courage, creativity, and the drive to leave a mark can turn even the most tragic life into an enduring legacy. Roddy Piper will forever be remembered as a man who lived boldly, entertained endlessly, and left a legacy that transcends the wrestling ring.